Well, we're going to talk Arne Slot. We're going to talk Liverpool formation and all that type of good stuff. It would be remiss of me to mention the press conference on Friday, but I don't think I'm either probably the right person to mention it. But Arne Slot answered some very, very good questions, if I do say so myself, in the press conference. This is what I got to ask him, and this is how he bodied me. Chris Pajak, Redmen TV. I speak to fans every single day, and the dominating conversation right now is your preferred system. Obviously, we've seen at Feyenoord a lot of 4-2-3-1. At Liverpool, we're accustomed to seeing a 4-3-3. Is the formation and the system something that's a non-negotiable of your ideology, or will you look at your players and tailor your system to the players at your disposal?
I'm a bit sad is maybe not the right word, but I was hoping if people looked at my team, they would not say it's 4-2-3-1 or it's 4-3-3 or it's whatever formation you want to call it. I was hoping they would say, okay, there's a lot of freedom when they have the ball to take in different positions. So sometimes it's a 4-2-3-1, sometimes it's a 4-1-4-1, sometimes we do build up with 3. So there's a lot of freedom when we have the ball. But if we don't have the ball, there's not so much freedom. Then we want to be really aggressive, and there's only one way, and that's everybody is mostly keeps his position. So I wouldn't put myself in a situation where I say I prefer 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1. There's a lot of players taking in a lot of different positions. So if you would have asked me, I would have said we play 4-3-3 instead of 4-2-3-1 as Feyenoord. But we did build up a lot of times with 3. Fullbacks have different roles, so I'm curious who told you that we played 4-2-3-1. Maybe that one should go to get his license or analyze a bit better.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think he bodied you.
I mean, he did.
I think it was the best question of the press conference. I said this before. I don't think he bodied you because he gave an answer and then he said, whoever told you it's 4-2-3-1 needs their license. Who told you it was 4-2-3-1?
The fans.
Was it yourself?
Yeah, a little bit. And every journalist that's written anything on Arne Slot in the last month.
It's been a topic of conversation.
Yeah, and that's it. I think the start of the question, it should have been in there, of course, was the big conversation amongst the fans right now, which is exactly what it is, isn't it? You know, it's been a massive conversation for us throughout the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks and stuff as well. So it's really interesting, and it brings up some things straight away. And obviously, I came back. You two were doing a reaction show to the press conference. Went straight upstairs to Dan, and you sort of had the same feelings as I had. You mentioned 4-1-4-1 within about 3 seconds of me meeting you, and that for me was like, oof.
Yeah.
Was it the same for you?
Yeah, mate.
And what did it make you think?
Yeah, well, ultimately, you know, the answer by and large give us something, didn't it? Actually give us something to cling on to. And sort of a lot of the conversations that we've had in recent weeks have been like, so much of this is dependent on what Arne Slot wants to play and how he sees us and what he views the squad as. And it felt like we might have to wait until perhaps even the first pre-season game until we got a sort of definitive answer to that. But thanks to your good self, we've got an answer much sooner than that, which is nice because it makes these conversations a lot easier to have. Just on his press conference overall, I was really, really impressed. Actually, I felt like confident, calm, controlled. As you said to me upstairs, doesn't suffer fools gladly either, which I didn't mind. They're quite straight talking in general, aren't they, the Dutch? So not a huge surprise there, but thought he came across brilliantly. And in terms of the formation itself, yeah, it's quite exciting, actually. I think clearly somebody who knows his own mind, clearly somebody who knows what type of football he wants to play and how he sees what he's done previously and what he sees Liverpool being a little bit as well. But yeah, I thought when it actually came down to sort of the brass tacks of the numbers, the 4-1-4-1 stuff excited me. The prospect of a 4-3-3 and sticking with that excites me because we've all said that Liverpool's squad is more tailored to that anyway, so that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, when he mentioned sort of like the off the ball being more rigid, but then when we've got it, you can play with freedom, and he's even a lot of gesturing with his hands, the sort of stuff that we do, just came across really passionate about it. And like I say, from a Liverpool fan point of view and sort of thinking of the possibilities thereafter, I'm bang up for it. So yeah, it's good.
And Chloe, for you, when you think about that 4-1-4-1, how are you putting the squad into that?
First of all, I need a world-class DM if that's what he's doing, because one on its own is a little bit not worrying, because if you've got a world-class footballer there and you've got the likes of Dom Szoboszlai and McAllister, who will give absolutely everything and will work extremely hard just ahead of that one, then it's perfectly fine. It's interesting. It means that Liverpool in possession, like he mentioned, will be fluid, will be attacking, will apply a lot of pressure off the ball, but whilst also maintaining that extremely disciplined shape that we need, that Liverpool have been lacking the last several years. It's always felt extremely easy to bully Liverpool and get past them in the midfield, and with him putting more bodies in there and hopefully sorting out the structure, it means that Liverpool will hopefully have a better foundation to go on to win games. It's exciting. I did not expect him to say anything about 4-1-4-1. What it did do in the moment was I instantly thought to myself, okay, well, what happens to this number 10 that I've put Harvey Elliott, I've gave Carvalho a little part in my head where he actually stands a chance of being there. If we do go back to this 4-3-3 and we're a little bit fluid in our movement, where do those players start? Where do they fit into the team? So players who had kind of been given pre-season as your chance to really show us what spot you deserve, it kind of makes me think, I don't know where half of these players are still going to play anymore, because in my head with the 4-2-3-1 I was putting everyone in little categories. That's being completely demolished, but I love how it wasn't this 4-3-3 and that's all it is. There feels like there's a plan B there. There's a change in, to get the best out of players, he gives them the freedom to move on the ball, and for someone like a Sobo, that is massive when he carries the ball from deep and he's allowed to advance. So it's exciting, and it's exciting to once again try and figure out where the hell he's putting off this squad.
Absolutely. Ben Cooper has just super chatted as well. Thank you, Ben. Hi, Chris. Do you reckon we line up with a 4-3-2-1 for the upcoming season? I've heard Slot favoured that formation in Feyenoord. Up the Reds. Yeah, appreciate it. Going to get a lot of that this season, I think, aren't we? As the man on Redmen TV was always the
someone who doesn't know his formation. Yeah. It's incredible.
And as the person who was always the person who wanted Klopp to play a 4-2-3-1 as well, this formation is going to stick with me for another 10 years now, isn't it, Steve?
He didn't say he wouldn't play it.
No, he didn't. He said he'll play 4-2-3-1, there'll be 4-1-4-1, there'll be 4-3-3, he'll build up with 3 at the back. We're going to talk through it all now, because the freedom thing is exactly what I want to get into. But sticking with the 4-1-4-1 for now, and the 4-3-3 and the 4-2-3-1, Steve, has anyone thought the 4 at the back might be very interesting in this? Because we're all focusing on the midfield, but the 4 at the back in build-up, for me, is Trent a lot more of a defender?
I've always been on the assumption that Trent's going to play right back anyway, if I'm honest. I haven't wavered on that. The things that come out to me was that obviously defending's going to be this whole idea that they're going to be 2 more defensive-minded midfielders, so an Endo and a Bajcetic in the same team, or McAllister next to an Endo as a base. I was thinking that could be a possibility. Now that's gone. And then also centre-forward's different. I think being a centre-forward as the one... I mean, how often have Liverpool had their centre-forward as the highest man on the pitch? That's what the 4-1-4-1 will end up being, won't it? Usually it's he drops in deeper and then the wide man...
Well, he won't defend in that anyway. He'll defend in a 4-4-2.
No, sorry, I'm just talking with the ball. It feels like we're going to have more of a target man, not target man, but the spear of the attack's going to be right down the middle, because usually that's Mo Salah's job, to be probably the highest formation on the pitch, or position on the pitch.
Further forward.
That's the word I was looking for. So there's a lot going on. If I'm honest, I was glad to hear it, because I was the opposite to Chloe. I think now there's a lot of players who know where they'll play. When we were thinking of this 4-2-3-1 formation, that's where I was like, all of our best players, or the majority of our better players, are the 8s, you know what I mean, in terms of in the midfield. So therefore now 2 of them are going to get picked every week. The idea that Liverpool were going to play number 10 really limited who could be. You were only ever going to get one of probably Elliott, Szoboszlai, Jones, Gravenberch on the pitch at one time. Now the manager's going to be able to potentially pick 2 of those as well. Obviously McAllister included. So for me, all it's done, I agree with Chloe, it's put more emphasis on that defensive midfield role. It's not going to be a job share where 2 lads we're going to start ask a lot of that person in that position. But also I think the one major thing when he went back to that 4-1 thing is we're going to see a different type of centre forward. I think Arne Slot's going to ask different things from his number 9 than what Jurgen Klopp asked, because that was never it was always in behind, or it was for years it was Roberto Firmino, and then what it become later with Jota and stuff. And even Darwin, he kept giving him a go and then taking him out. I heard Slot, or I read rather, that he's had conversations with Nunes and stuff like that, and he's going to really try and work around him. And I think he probably is likely to do better in that type of formation where he just doesn't have to worry about it. If his job is to just be at the top all the time, I think that'll do Darwin Nunes better, because I remember, when you spoke to Pep Linders and we were talking about like the pressing from the front and all that kind of stuff, I think he himself admitted that was something that Darwin still got to learn in terms of the defending from the front. That might be a little bit easier if everyone's higher up anyway. Mm-hmm. I think that potentially could make it easier for Nunes. So you can see a world where he's like the starting centre forward.
I've always been of the opinion that Darwin Nunes, or rather Arne Slot, will get the best out of Darwin Nunes, or at least try to. He's definitely more suited to his game. The Darwin thing under Klopp felt removed from what Klopp wanted or what's been successful. Obviously, Bobby Firmino was the archetypal, brilliant number 9 in what Klopp wanted to do in his system. He was very fortunate to have Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah either side of him. Don't get me wrong, but the Nunes thing never felt like an ideal fit to me. That's why when Gakpo first arrived and he did a little bit of that, we were all singing from the hilltops how he's Firmino 2.0. Maybe it didn't quite transpire in the same way, but regardless of formation, whether he 4-2-3-1, 4-1-4-1, 4-3-3, even 4-3-3, actually, I've tagged it onto the end. It felt like whatever Slot was going to ask or demand of Darwin Nunes was going to be entirely different and was going to suit Darwin Nunes a hell of a lot more. He's going to get Darwin Nunes running in behind, off the shoulder, playing almost like a proper number 9 again, because that's what Darwin Nunes is, for all intents and purposes. He did it with Santiago Jimenez at Feyenoord. So the whole Darwin Nunes conversation has changed entirely for me ever since it was confirmed that Arne Slot will be manager, because it just felt like there's no way Slot gives up on him. And he pretty much said as much in this conversation. He said, I've spoken to him, I've already told him I'm going to be relying on him. He's definitely got sort of a future in around my plans, and I'm over the moon for that, and I think we'll get a good, very much improved version of him. Just in terms of positions as well, I think the 10 thing's interesting. I think where I struggle with it ever so slightly, and why I was getting excited about the 4-2-3-1, was because as much as I agree with the fact that I think the 6 is definitely a position now we need to sort of revert our gaze to when it comes to the transfer market, different ball game altogether all of a sudden. A bit, not gutted because that's not the right term, but I think the Bajcetic fit, that's a shame that we kind of lost that in our mind's eye a little bit, because I think him alongside McAllister was exciting quite a lot of people. And also I am a little bit disappointed to lose the 10, but the biggest loser in and around this entire conversation is Fabio Carvalho.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because instantly you go from really seeing a chance for Fabio Carvalho. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to write him off completely because Arne Slot said some words, but you see him having a real crack at it. And now I'm looking at this and going, if we're not going to do 4-2-3-1 exclusively that often, what happens there?
Yeah, that's when I said I don't know where players go, I meant the players who, look, Harvey Elliott, he'll go back to being that number 8, and he'll probably get lobbed on the right wing again when he's needed, and I don't want that. I don't think a lot of people want that. I think the excitement I felt at the prospect of him playing as a number 10 for Liverpool was unbelievable, because I just think he's brilliant in that area of the pitch. I think he's brilliant in tight spaces. He's quality on the ball, and he can hit a shot from just outside the area as well. So I was really excited about that. Like you mentioned there with Fabio Carvalho, he does not work on the left wing. We've seen that before. We know what that's about. And Cody Gakpo has decided to turn into a monster in the last month. So I'd imagine he gets quite a start under Slot if he can keep it up through pre-season. So Fabio Carvalho, you're then looking at being potentially a number 8 again.
But this is all on the proviso that the 10 doesn't exist.
Yes.
The 10 can still exist in a 4-3-3.
It can.
Because it can be slightly off kilter, can't it? The 2 might actually be the one that goes and the 10 stays, for example. You could have a sort of deeper line midfielder and then a sort of off-centre, proper centre midfielder, a 6 proper centre midfielder, and then someone further up. It can go like that. So that's the beautiful thing. We actually don't know how the midfield is, because one person's 4-2-3-1 is a 4-3-3 and vice versa. So it's got all these questions attached to it. But I think the biggest takeaway for me and sort of moving the conversation on here is are we talking about relationism here in terms of football tactics? Because I was planning a show on relationism for the deep dive probably 6 to 12 months ago, somewhere in that sort of thing, and I think it was all to do with the midfielder from Brazil that we never ended up signing and all that type of stuff, and Fluminense and the way that they play football and stuff like that. So I went back and I sort of jotted down a little bit, because I don't know whether anyone or everyone knows about what relationism in terms of football tactics is. So I went back to that agenda and I've rewritten the notes in hopefully a manner in which people will be able to understand it. So relationism is the relationship between players, space and the ball. What we've grown accustomed to is positional play. Players in predetermined zones creating shapes, mainly obviously triangles and stuff like that, to attack the opposition from. In relationism, the space is a complex derivative of the interactions between the ball, the opposition and teammates. Space is dynamic and ever-changing rather than a predefined element. Space is continuously developing and changing with the movement of teammates, opposition players and the ball. No more pattern plays. Instead, relationism empowers the players and relies on fluidity, but crucially not of position, but of roles. No more out-and-out destroyer, but more likely midfielders who, when occupying the deeper role, become the destroyer. So you need versatility in all of those players. And now with that sort of in my mind's eye, and him talking about freedom in inverted commas, freedom is there. You've got to go and find space on the football field. We know that. That's how you beat teams. It's what you're working for. It might be done through a dribbler who goes past the man and creates space and draws players out. It might be done through Bobby Firmino making a run deep from the 9 into the thing and creating space for Salah and Mane to go into. Or it might be just done with pure fluidity, pure just movement around the pitch. And that's when I think about it, and that versatility, it gets me so much more excited. To go back to your Baccetic thing, hasn't Baccetic shown us that he can do every single role in the midfield? In that he's had nearly a full season, a couple of years ago, and still where's his best position? No, he's a good 6. No, he's an 8. No, he can play further forward. Yada, yada, yada. So with that, and that's what we're going to be doing, and that type of sort of Dutch total football style thing, no more positional play, then it makes sense to have a Cody Gakpo and a Diogo Jota and a Darwin Núñez who can all do stuff on the left-hand side, and, a Gakpo and a Jota and a Darwin Núñez who can all do stuff through the centre. It gets me really excited about what the future holds for Arne Slot. Steve, what do you think about that? Are you as excited as I am?
No, I don't think that would be possible, mate. You've done well there. For the most part, and I said this before the show, and I apologize, I think you can overplay it a little bit in terms of formation and stuff. What he's basically saying is, I've got 4 defenders, I sit in midfielder, and the rest of them are the attackers, and they're going to be fluid. It's kind of what you're saying. That isn't that much different than what Jurgen Klopp did, to be honest with you, and it's not that much different than pretty much all the top teams in Europe are doing. What Liverpool, from what I took from it and what you're saying, is correct to me, but I don't think, like I say, that's what our players are anyway. So what I'd have liked him, because he didn't really get to this part of your question, because he was too busy taking the piss out of you, was like, are you going to suit your system to the players, or do the players suit the system? He never really answered that, because Liverpool's players were built on 9 years of Jurgen Klopp and what Jurgen Klopp was doing, and obviously there were changes within that, but for the most part the fundamentals of Jurgen Klopp's football didn't really ever change. It was the high press, it was the fluidity, it was the what we all knew it was. I don't know if Arne Slot's going to come in and say, because you never answered it, is he going to go, right, well, I don't care about all that, I do this and this is what we're doing? Or is he going to look at those players and go, I think you're best suited to doing this? I'd have liked them to have got to that part of it. But for the most part, I would say, I think asking, you mentioned about, the rotation of players, and I get it. I don't think you can do that with a number 6. I don't think you can ask someone to just drop in to be the number 6. I think I agree with what Chloe says. I think you need someone there that's their focus. Now, don't get me wrong, look like a Rodri will go and join in with the attacks, of course he will, in the same way that Fabinho did it as well. But the way you're talking about it is a little bit like what Alexis McAllister's asked to do a little bit of times, I think, under Jurgen Klopp. And I think that goes back to one of the reasons why Liverpool were defensively easier to get at. I think am I right in saying McAllister was one of the most difficult pass players? I think where
the understanding comes from is, it's not 100% of the game. It's constantly fucking changing. There is a number 6, but he has the freedom to go and create space somewhere else. So somebody else, like Trent Alexander-Arnold moving further forward.
I don't see Liverpool doing
Jordan Henderson. You wouldn't say Jordan Henderson was the right back, but Jordan Henderson found himself in the role of a right back loads of times to cover. Yeah. That's all relationism is.
Yeah, I understand that. However, And again, this is only just. I talked to like some Feyenoord fans when we first got him and stuff. I think he would quite like to have the fella who just sits there, the Rodri-esque type player. Now Rodri doesn't just sit he scores goals, he gets forward, of course he does, and he does all these things, and he's the gold standard. And I expect on Liverpool to have the next Rodri. You'd be putting that bar too high, perhaps. But what I do believe, I worry about Wataru Endo being asked to do that 38 to 50
I think everybody does.
38 to 50 games a season. I think
we've said probably every single show for the last 4 weeks on these original shows that we all think that the number 6 is a role that we need to improve on.